Okay, now I got all the artifacts sorted out. Ah, artifacts and revised. A lot of them are stuff that was carried over from Alpha, Beta, Unlimited. Um, Others you'll see are brought over from like Arabian Nights and Antiquities predominantly. You know, things like Bottle of Suleiman and hold on a minute. Aladdin's ring and Aladdin's lamp. Those are obviously from Arabian Nights. Mishra's War Machine, Dragon Engine, all sorts of stuff from all over the place. Dingus Egg, as I seem to recall, Dingus Egg was either originally banned or restricted in the original tournament rules because it was just really, really powerful at the time. Or at least they thought it was going to be really powerful because 2 damage for each land. If you know, it was a day when things were slower, so it's just like you could easily power out a pair of Dingus Eggs really fast, and then Armageddon, and you'd have very little mana. You'd have very little land on the board, and you've just killed your opponent with Dingus Eggs and Armageddon. And I'm really not kidding. It's like you can go like turn 1 Forest, Lawn Noir, Elf, go. Turn 2 Plains, and then you could say, I don't know, drop maybe a Mana Vault. I don't know, whatever. So we're right here. We're looking at I don't know. So you're looking at what? Turn 2, drop a Mana Vault, tap the Mana Vault and the Elf for a Dingus Egg. And then, like, play a Plains. You got 2 lands on the board. Next turn, you untap. You're on turn 3. Play another land. Play a second Dingus Egg. You've still only got, and you've got 3 lands on the board. Next turn, Armageddon. You've done 6 damage to yourself. You're like what? 5 turns in. If your opponent hasn't missed a land drop yet, you've just killed him. Or you could just wait a turn or 2. It doesn't really matter. It seriously don't. Yeah. Back in the day, Armageddon-based strategies were really huge. And Dingus Egg, I don't think, stayed on the banned or restricted list for very long. They came to the conclusion that there was a lot more dangerous stuff out there. A lot more dangerous. Let's go bouncing around here. We've got no Black Lotus. We've got no Moxes. They weren't in this set. It was the first set that they weren't in. Well, the first core set. I have to admit, I'm kind of torn on that. I mean, in retrospect, back in the day, yeah, I wish they would have put them in. In retrospect, they should never have been printed in the first place. Pooh happens. Something about hindsight and its accuracy? Yeah. Hank of Mishra. Cheaper to play than Dingus Egg. Does 2 damage to target player whenever they play a land. Yeah. Ornithopter, originally from Antiquities. It's a 0/2 flyer for 0. In the back of the revised rulebook, way in the back, in italics, it read, "Our condolences to everyone who's been killed by an ornithopter." That was also in the Ice Age rulebook as well. I'm not sure if it was in the 4th edition or not. I'd have to check, and I don't know if I have any anymore. I'd have to look around. They actually put all sorts of weird things in the back of or the backs and the fronts of the old rules booklets. For example, in Mirage, there was a dwarf whose flavor text was "Fetch the Pest Ritter Paka. We've got dwarves in the rutabagas again." And in the Mirage rulebook, you'll see, if you look around for it, it's either in the front or the back. There's a line in italics where it says, "Fetch the Pest Ritter Paka. We've got dwarves in the legal text again." Or is it legal text in the rutabagas? I can't remember. what else was there? In Tempest, the card Eladamri's Vineyard had the flavor text of the mushroom wine made Gerard's head spin and his stomach followed suit. And his stomach soon followed suit. I believe the Tempest rulebook made a joke about how the rules text made his head spin and his stomach followed suit, or something like that. The legal text, yeah. Yeah, I don't know when they stopped doing that. Every now and again they like to sneak in cute things. For example, you had a couple cards in Tempest whose names themselves were jokes. Squeeze Toy, yeah, and Apes of Wrath, because it was the demi-plane of Wrath, R-A-T-H, but the idea was Apes of Wrath instead of Grapes of Wrath, W-R-A-T-H, totally different thing. It referenced to an old book. I've never actually read Grapes of Wrath. It's one of those so-called classics that I've never read. One thing that people don't like to admit, a lot of the so-called classics are horrifyingly boring reads. They really are. Some aren't, however. I mean, some of them you just can't appreciate when you're a kid in school, you know? I mean, why am I even talking about this? Magic cards! Holy crap! Magic cards. Ooh, Magikarp. No. Beakstone prevents creatures power greater than 2 from untapping. Glasses of Urza. Tap to look at your opponent's hand. I remember great stories on that one, especially since it's only a 1-drop. I remember a great story from my younger brother on that one. He'd be playing with his friends at school, back when he's in high school and whatnot, you know, during lunch or whatever, study hall, blah, 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 blah. He'd play the Glasses of Urza, and it's just like, on first turn, tap, show me your hand. Every single turn, show me your hand, show me your hand, show me your hand. They start a new game. Every turn from after the first, hey, show me your hand, show me your hand, show me your hand, show me your hand. About 5 or 6 turns in, his opponent stops and looks, wait a minute, you don't even have the glasses out. Yeah, I know, I'm just telling you to show me I'm just asking you to show me your hand, and you just keep doing it. Yep. Brassman, it's actually undercosted. It's a 1/3 for 1, but you have to pay a colorless to during your upkeep if you want to untap. Doesn't untap normally. Library of Leng, you skip your discard step at the end of the turn. If something makes you discard, you may discard to the top of your deck instead of to your graveyard. It's kind of interesting. Rod of Ruin, we've all seen it before. It's 4 to play, 3 and tap for 1 damage to target creature or player. Aladdin's Ring is twice the casting cost of Rod of Ruin, and it also costs 8 to activate. Woo! 4 damage to any target creature or player. That's a lot of damage, but it's just too much mana. It really is. Aladdin's Lamp, that's another one of those redunculously overcosted cards. It's 10 mana for X and tap. Instead of drawing a card from the top of your library, draw X cards, but choose only 1 to put in your hand. You must shuffle leftover cards and put them at the bottom. You must shuffle the leftover cards. Okay. So basically, when you draw a card, you may pay X and tap Aladdin's Lamp. If you do, you look at the top X cards of your library and choose one of them. You draw that card instead. The remaining cards you looked at in this way are shuffled and placed on the bottom of your library. Honestly, I think they just say shuffle them back in these days. There's no point, you know? I don't know. Mana Vault's a colorless artifact. You can tap it for 3 mana. Does not untap normally during your upkeep. Does not untap normally during your untap. You have to pay 4 mana to untap it. If it remains tapped during your untap, you take 1 damage. Deals 1 damage to you, blah blah blah, whatever, right? Basalt Monolith, it's 3 colorless for an artifact that taps for 3. Doesn't untap as normal. You may spend 3 at any time to untap it. Down here, the Hive. It's 5 colors, 5 in tap to put a 1/1 flying wasp token into play. And it goes on to say all sorts of crazy crap about what tokens are, what they do, blah, 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 blah. It's a whole crap ton of rules text that today is totally unnecessary. Totally. Obscene Golem, it's a vanilla 4/6, 6. Meh, who cares? Clockwork Beast, he's weird. He's got, I guess we can call it the Clockwork mechanic. He comes in with 7+1, he's an 0/4 for 6 mana, comes in with 7+1/+0 counters. Whenever he attacks or blocks at the end of combat, you remove a counter from him. You would pay during your upkeep. You may. This is horrible wording. Seriously, the exact wording on this. During the upkeep phase. Oh my god, this is such Alright, let me tell you how horrible the wording is on this thing, okay? Clockwork Beast, 6 colorless, artifact creature, 0/4. Illustration, Drew Tucker. If I recall correctly, it was Drew Tucker who did a lot of watercolor stuff. For some cards, it's worked better than others. Okay. Put 7+1/+0 counters on Beast. After Beast attacks or blocks a creature, discard a counter. During the upkeep phase, controller may buy back lost counters for 1 colorless per counter. This taps Beast. I'm not even certain if that's... Wow. Just wow. I mean, wow. That's one of the most horrific wordings I've ever seen on a Magic card. I mean, just horrific. It's bad. It's bad. Oh, geez. Conservator, 4 colors, 3 colors, tap, prevent the loss of up to 2 life, whoop-de-flippin'-dee. It's a waste. Flying Carpet, 4 colors, 2 colors, tap. Target creature gains flying till end of turn. If that creature is destroyed before end of turn, so is Flying Carpet. In later printings, they actually removed that clause entirely. You actually have some power level errata on Flying Carpet that most of the time makes it better. Go fig. Gender Saddlebags, 2 to cast, 3 colors and untap a creature. Bottle of Sullivans, 4 colors, you pay 1 and flip a coin, your opponent calls it. If it ends up in your favor, you sacrifice the ball and you get a 5/5 flying Jin token. If you lose the flip, it does like 5 damage to you, and I don't remember if it's sacrificed or not. It's not important, it's a bad card. You don't care. Dragon Engine, 3 colors for a 1/3, pump 2 colors to give it +1/+0. That's not bad. That's really not bad at all. Winter Orb, 2 colors for an artifact. Players only untap 1 land during their untap steps. I think I've talked about the errata on Winter Orb before. Back in the day, under pre-6th edition rules, there was a rule that said artifacts that generate a continuous effect shut down when they become tapped. They no longer generate that effect. And when 6th edition rules came along, they got rid of that rule, which nerfed Winter Orb. Because there were a lot of people who play Winter Orb with Icy Manipulator, which was not reprinted in Revised, but it did get reprinted in Ice Age. It was in Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited, but for some reason they took it out of Revised. Oh well. But yeah, people were still using it that way. And a few months after 6th edition rules got printed, due to popular demand largely, they errated Winter Orb so that it still worked the way it did under older rule sets. And then a few months back, less than a year I'm pretty sure, they removed that errata, and I'm not the only person who's upset by that. I'm seriously not. Oh well. Jade Monolith. It's 4 colors. You pay 1 colors to redirect all damage dealt to any creature to yourself. All damage from one source, from one creature. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is it doesn't change the source of the damage. Jade Monolith and Circles of Protection used to be a huge combo, because you'd basically save all of your creatures. Yeah, Okay, you do damage to my creature? Okay, cool. Use Jade Monolith, I redirect it to myself, Circle of Protection, I'm cool. What you got for me? Yeah. Sunglasses of Urza, 3 colorless artifact, white mana in your pool may be used as white or red mana. I guess that's, it hoses conversion in a way. I've tried using it with conversion in red and white decks to effectively turn all my lands into dual lands. It's not really worth it. It's just not. Primal Clay. Primal Clay is an interesting one. It's a 4-drop artifact. When it hits the board, you can choose for it to either be a 2/2 flyer, a 3/3 ground pounder, or a 1/6 wall. That's kind of funky. Dancing Scimitar, it's a 1/5 flyer for 4. It's nothing spectacular on the offense, but on the defense, it's ridiculously difficult to get around. And here we have the cycle of cards known as Lucky Charms. They're all 1 casting cost artifacts that when you play a spell of a specific color, you may pay 1 colorless and gain 1 life. They're bad cards. They're just seriously bad cards. They're a trap. They're a trap for newer players that don't understand that life gain isn't good. Especially not when you're only gaining 1 or 2 life here and there. Throne of Bone was for black, Wooden Sphere was for green, Ivory Cup was for white, Crystal Rod was for blue, and Iron Star was for red. These days we've got a version of them that was printed in the original Mirrodin block that doesn't require you to pay mana, you can just gain the life. You've got, Dragon's Claw and Demon's Horn and Angel's Feather, Kraken's Eye. Green was Worm Scale or something crazy like that. I can't even remember. No big whoop. Oh, hey, here's our good buddy Juggernaut. He's a 5/3 for 4 mana. Attacks each turn if able, cannot be blocked by walls. We also have Living Wall. It's 4 colors for a 0/6 wall that regenerates for 1. Living Wall used to stop people's offenses dead in their tracks. I mean, it's a hard card to. It used to be a hard wall to get around if you didn't have flyers. Especially seeing how you couldn't terror it. If you didn't have a terror, you had to disintegrate it, or bust out a Shatterstorm, or Swords to Plowshare it, or something. Just hard to get around. Anything else here? We got Mana Prism, 3 colors, 2 colors, tap for 1 mana of any color. Whoopty flippin' D. These days we have a lot better mana converters than that. Cormor's Belch, 4 colorless, all swamps are 1/1 creatures. That's an interesting effect. I used to use that with Holy Light, which is from the Dark, if I recall correctly, which is either 2 colors and a white or a colorless and double white for an instant. That said all non-white creatures get -1/-1 till end of turn. I combined that with Cormor's Spell to just hose black before. It was fun. I didn't do it too often though. It was kind of cheesy. Navinral's Disc, 4 colorless artifact, comes into play tapped. 1 colorless. 1 colorless, destroy all artifacts, enchantments, and creatures, including itself. Disc is basically, especially back in the day, Disc was Black's insurance policy. Because it dealt with enchantments and it dealt with artifacts, and those were things that Black could not deal with. Navinral's Disc just sat there and said, okay, that's the way you want to play the game? Fine. Boom! Now let's try this again. This time I'm going to win! Rah! Yeah. What other fun stuff we got around here? Gemdai Tome, 4 to play, 4 and tap to draw a card. It sounds really slow today. It was kind of slow back then, but it was a staple in draw-go decks back in the day. It was a staple. Disrupting Scepter, it's 3 colors artifact, 3 and tap, opponent discards a card. Nyeh. Helm of Chatzuk, 1 colorless, 1 and tap, target creature gains banding till end of turn. It's kind of interesting. Mishra's War Machine is a 7 mana for a 5/5 Bander. During your upkeep, discard a card, or War Machine becomes tapped and does 3 damage to you. Okay. It's not exactly a great card. Ivory Tower used to be restricted. I don't know if it still is. It's 1 colorless artifact. During your upkeep, gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand in excess of 4, I believe it was. Gain 1 life for each card in your hand above 4. Okay. There we go. Black Vice, when it hits the board, you target an opponent. During that player's upkeep, Vice does damage to them equal to the number of cards in their hand in excess of 4. The Rack, it's a 1 colorless artifact. Hits the board, you choose a target player. During that player's upkeep, Rack deals damage to them. 1 point of damage to them for each card in their hand fewer than 3. Rack is commonly used in discard decks. Vice is Vice. You basically play that and just pump your opponent's hand full of cards and then say go. At which point your opponent sits there like, yeah, Not a lot he can do at that point. Let me see. Anything else here I haven't really touched? I know I've babbled about all sorts of things today. Oh yeah, and here's Anyalay. It's a 2/2 for 3. Goes to the graveyard from play. Its controller gains 2 life. There was a card in the original Mirrodin block. I can't remember what it was called. It was basically a bigger version of the Anyalay, and its card was actually an anagram of the words Dark Anyalay. Oh well. Another interesting thing about Anyalay, in this particular printing of it, you can't really make it out, but in the lower right corner of the art, it's signed Anson 93. Anson Maddox made the art in 1993. This particular printing, the revised printing, they're all wrong. Illustration line credits a man named Kirsten Common. I don't know how, I don't know why, but that's the way it is. It's weird, it's wacky, whatever, right? Right. As an other aside, well, not really an aside, but since I'm on the subject of revised and I've only got a handful of cards left, I'm not going to use a day by itself for these dual lands. I've got 2 plateaus, a bayou, and a pair of scrublands. Those are rares. Those are rares, guys. They generally don't need an introduction. Back in the day, they did. A lot of people didn't understand how good they were. I mean, really good. Incredigood. Yes, that's a word now. Incredigood is a word. Don't look at me like that. Roll your eyes at me. I see how. I don't think I don't see that. Anyways, for all the text on them, the original dual lands can be summed up with 3 words for their rules text. Land, basic land type 1, basic land type 2. For example, plateau, land, plains, mountain. Bayou, land, swamp, forest. Scrubland, land, plains, swamp. There was tundra, which was the island plains. Taiga, which was the forest mountain. Savanna, if I recall correctly, was the forest plains. Underground Sea was swamp island. Badlands was swamp mountain. A tropical island was mountain island. Yeah, and these were incredible cards, and people at the time didn't fully realize it. There were people who would actually trade them away because they open up the pack, they're trying to figure out what their rare is, because there was no color coding, there were no expansion symbols on core sets at the time. There was no color coding. You'd open it up, and if you didn't know what the rare was, you wouldn't really know. And there were a lot of people back in the day, and this probably burned a few people back in the day and actually got them out of the game, who they'd open up a booster pack and they'd find this land sitting there, and they're like, why would I want this? It's a land. I've got plenty of land. I've bought a couple of starter decks. Who cares? And they'd trade it away. They'd trade it away for something stupid. Like, you know, if their deck didn't have enough firepower in it or something, they'd trade away like a Tundra for a Fireball or something. And it's like, okay, really? Not knowing that Tundra was like a $10, $15, $20 card at the time, and now they're worth a hell of a lot more. A hell of a lot. Yeah. As far as these are concerned, I mean, especially I play a lot of red-white decks. I've got one that already has a playset of plateaus in it, so there's 2 right there. I don't really want to call them extras because there's really no such thing as having too many dual lands. There really isn't. There just isn't. I'm tempted to go all Monty Python right there. That's okay. Alrighty. Get these spliced together. This is going to be a long episode. Hey, look, battery's running low too, but it's still recording. This camera drives me nuts at times. Really does. I suppose I shouldn't complain. It's kind of an old camera. I bought it back in 08. I'm sorry, no, 09. I bought it back in the summer of 09 while I was on leave from deployment. So, you know, this thing is, you know, I bought it in Massachusetts, in my home state. Brought it back to Iraq with me. It survived a few months in Iraq, and then I brought it back home. And it's a 2-year-old camera. It's traveled a lot. It's taken a beating over the couple of years, so I guess I really shouldn't complain too much. You know, combine that with the fact, of course, I'm a crummy cameraman. I admit this. Alright, be good, have fun, etc., etc., so forth. Emphasis on the whatnot.